Hey guys, so Honkai started a paid collab second part drop, and it seemed pretty alright for the most part. But for most of them, it was another effort of saying that they were lazy and sloppy. And let's not forget that Team Tontas already has made a video on how it ruined Fate again, explaining that Gilgamesh does not look on how he's supposed to look, giving him that cocky attitude as always, his arrogant attitude, and goes over the fact that this is a wasted IP. They're just draining the money, just gaining money from it, and that's basically
Bruh.
it. While not providing the bosses and the map compared to Wuthering Waves. And he also went on to one Twitter post saying, so instead of bringing in an enemy from the Fate universe to fight, they just reused a weekly boss, Lamau. He's dead, so fucking lazy. Then he brought up another Twitter post of a person who was actually very happy that this collab happened, calling it a 10 out of 10. And he hated the Cyberpunk Edge Runners collab because it was the writing and backers. So this was a hate thing. Honestly, that's all though. But this they aren't necessarily lazy, and I'm gonna explain to it. Now, first of all, Waterways collaborated with CK Project, which is a Western game franchise, and Honkai Star Rail collab with the Fate, which is an Eastern. Now, you might think that all did the same, so it should both work. Well, that's actually wrong. Let's go over that. First of all, collaboration with Western dev games is a lot easier than Eastern. We'll go over the three main things. First of all, is that they allow you to use the IP, so you can basically are allowed to use the characters' names, the looks, and everything. So theoretically, it makes sense that if collab this collab makes good revenue and the audience like it, they will greenlit it and allow you to use it. Second is they don't hold that much restrictions. They are okay with putting their characters into a game to fit in the story and the lore. And personally, they are completely fine if you're using Unreal Engine or I guess Unity. Both of those you can grab the character models, integrate it into the game, and that's how Wooden Ways did the collab with Cyberpunk. And now comparison to Eastern. Eastern has a strict IP and brand protection. So let's just take for example like Capcom or Saniro. They both have characters that are long-term brand assets, and they are going to dictate on how the character moves, possesses, and looks. So theoretically, them saying that you guys saying that they don't look like the character much because Eastern wanted to dictate that the character has to move like this, it has poses have to be like this, and how it poses, how it talks, and the looks have to be different from the original. So as well as the weapons, on what kind of abilities they can use and what can they not. Because if they show a character and it does not fit for them, they'll shut it down and they will need to redo it again. And first of all, second is it's hard to getting a collab with Eastern. So you might think that they had so you might think with Honkai Star when they announced the figure, they're like saying they had an entire year. Why didn't they do anything with it? Well, it's a very simple thing. It's because that with collaborating with an Eastern development games such as Fate, it takes a whole year for legal reasons to taking. You need to put it goes through multiple layers of management, brand committees, and licensing departments, and they move so slowly it could go back or forth for approval for every single asset to lighting and sound effects, and it can add months to the project's timeline. And now the third one, which is property tech of localization hurdles, basically meaning that frequently used, heavily customized or priority in-house engines, additional negotiating context often requires bringing in significant language, cultural, and time zone gaps, meaning that Eastern Eastern characters have to follow the game's lore and then their lore together so it doesn't get mixed up. So yeah, you can tell why it was a lot faster for Wooden Ways to do a cyber collab against Honkai Star, Honkai Star with Fate. And let's go over one thing as well. Personally, the reason why you guys are saying that it ruined it, it didn't ruin it. They didn't have much an option. They had a long negotiation, which was a year ago. They had this, and then they announced it because Type Moon, who is led by Kinon Ansu and Aniplex, they have strong control over their characters. Second is the lore protection. So that's basically on how they wanted it to be. They wanted the characters to still fit in with the lore of their own game, and so as well as theirs. So that's why you get Saber and Archer. Those are the two. Those are the two characters that have to follow every single animation, dialogue, story. They have to look at it and approve. If they don't, it's scrapped and they have to redo it all again until they like it. And you might be wondering, why did he do it in the first place? Why didn't he just choose an underclass? One simple reason. Because David Chiang, who was a producer at Honkai Star Rail, and Kino Konasu are actually mutual fans of each other's work. So yeah, Kino Konasu likes Honkai Star Rail, David Chiang likes Fate. So it took a while for them to come to agreement and saying, like, yeah, we could do the collab. So yeah, in comparison towards Cyberpunk and Wuthering Waves, it was a lot easier for them, but for Honkai Star Rail and Fate, it was a lot harder. And now, for his question of like, why didn't he add, when it was a Fate Stay Night Fate collab, why not add Shiro, the main character? One reason, Archer is theoretically Shiro. You already have a Shiro. Archer is basically a future version of Shiro. You already have Shiro, so I don't know why you're complaining about that. And personally, this also revolves around the game's master and servant dynamic. Basically, a master is a human that has a servant that follows every single command. Basically, a human being. That does not work well with Honkai Stars, which is quite limited. But servants, you can use them for a lot. They're perfect. They're perfect for the space battle, high explosive battles. And here's the thing: Shiro would, if they would actually add a Shiro, it would be possible to fitting more into it as an NPC into story quests. They would not fit well as a main character because honestly, the owners hold strong control over that. And now another thing. Second of is that, how do we say this? Villains. So yeah, as I said before, that some of them here that they're using their weekly bosses as villains. Here's the thing. Sure, the thing is, making these villains cost a lot of money and modeling power that you just don't have. Okay, it took a year for them to agree, and it took them this long to making these characters because they can't add 80 villains because it would take more longer than ever though. Like you still got Saber, like Archer, Ren, Gilgamesh, even Lancer as an NPC, which is perfect. You don't need that much anyway. And the reason why are they selective about why they didn't add the bosses is because Type Moon is overprotective of a character's loss. So they're basically prideful in the character. If they see that the character's getting wrecked by some pale, some like Evernight or Fagnon, it would just look like punchy packs, and they're like, what? No, we don't like this. Like our characters are meant to be villains who actually died in the story and had their reasons, not become punching bags for these characters. So yeah, in theory, they had really restrictive options, and they really couldn't do much about it though, because Fate owners dictated on what they need to do and what they could add. No bosses, no main character, nothing. Only these selected characters and how the story would go. And before you ask though, is that why did you make a separate planet for them? Okay, now listen here. Do you understand on how long it takes for a game to make an entire like map for the event? Yes, they could do that. But the thing is though, is that Honkai Star takes about 6 weeks to make an entire planet map for the next story. If they were to focus on that, and boom, the planet's done. But let's say if like the collab is over, then basically this planet was just worthless to making. They just wasted their time and resources on making a planet up an extra own unique map for the collab. And when the collab ended, it's just basically sitting there collecting dust. So in theory, they are not lazy. It's just very limited in comparison to what they raised in Cyberpunk. They got all the choices they could make, honestly. And yes, sure, that was good and all, but yeah, that's good because they got multiple freedoms. They could use the character models and everything, adding V into the story as well. Take a look at it. But in Honkai Star Rail, like with Fate, you can't really do that because Typhoon was very, very strict about their characters, what they could add. So yeah, in theory is that Woody Wave chose the easier and safer option of collaborative Cyberpunk Red because they were able to get much out of the possibilities with a Western game because they had all of these agreements. They were kind and they were gentle compared to Fate, who were more stricter and more prideful for their creation. So yeah, in the end, Honkai Star isn't lazy. It's just Type Moon is very limited, and East Type Moon is very restrictive of collabs. And if you think that they are lazy, then you're just wrong. Okay, you're just wrong. Maybe do your research about how collabs work, or search it up on Google. Honestly, that's the easier way of finding out this information. But honestly, yeah, that's all for me. I really all hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you'll leave a like and subscribe. I will see you all in the next one.